You guys seem to like the last Fundamentals video, so let's keep them going. I saw you guys requested specific fundamental videos, and I'm very willing to do them. But this specific one was already on my to-do list, so we're gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way first. Today we're gonna be talking about ultimate usage. As we all know, ultimates are very powerful when used correctly. A big thing I've noticed is many players don't seem to know the correct times to use and hold their ultimates. I've seen plenty of ultimates not used when they were needed or wasted on minimum value. Now, the situations you use your ults in and the amount of times you use it per round vary from character to character. But there is a rough outline you can follow with every character that will help you use your ultimates more effectively. So at the start of the game, obviously you have no ultimate charge at all. The first point fight could end and one team could cap the point before either sides get any ultimates. It happens. But most of the time, at least some characters will be able to get their ultimates before the first point fight ends. If you find that the point fight is still going strong for both sides, use that ultimate to end the point fight and get the objective captured. However, let's say you have a clear advantage. Like you have 99% capture and you get your ult, but it's 4 of you versus 2 of them. Obviously, your team is going to be able to win that fight and cap without having to use the ult that you just got. You can win the fight normally and save the ult to give you more momentum during the push. This leads me to the push itself. Using ultimates during the push if a good opportunity presents itself is perfectly fine. However, you want to be careful about how many ultimates are used during the push. For the most part, you only want to use them when the ideal situation appears. If you're a character that gets their ultimate very fast, you don't have to worry about using it sparingly during the push. A Grok or Pepper invested in morale, or a Leon that gets her killing blow with her ult each time, are good examples of characters who can put out a lot of ultimates. For most characters though, you want to use it more sparingly during pushes. Odds are you may need 1 or 2 ults at the end of the push when the enemy team is defending the hardest. This leads me to another thing though. There's a big choice you and your team have to make here. If you use ultimates, you can push and get a 2-0 score. But if the enemy doesn't use their ultimates, then they're gonna have a big advantage going into the next point fight since your team won't have many, or even any depending on how many you used. As many of you know, there is this thing called comeback mechanic. Basically, when you're down by 2 points, you cap 4% per tick, while the enemy caps 3% per tick. This makes a big difference in the long run. With comeback mechanic, you often only need to win 1 fight in order to capture the objective. So again, if you're going to use your ultimates to push the payload for the 2-0, don't overdo it. Try to get the enemy to use ults while not using too many of yours, so in the next point fight you have more ultimates than them to balance out them having comeback mechanic. If you're on the opposite end of this and you see the enemy is going to push the payload in so they can get the 2-0, do your best to force their ults out while keeping yours, so you have ultimates and comeback mechanic. Having both of those things is a big advantage for the point fight and will make it easy for you to turn the game around and cap. Now at the start of a new round, if you and your team have ultimates going into the point fight, use them. I often see people holding their ults throughout the whole point fight while waiting for the ideal moment, but don't. If your ultimate can get even 1 kill or be a big cause of at least 1 kill during the point fight, then your ult was valuable. If you have comeback mechanic, you can more often than not use all your ultimates right away, wipe the enemy team, zone for a small amount of time, and cap quickly. However, if you don't have comeback mechanic, using all of your ultimates right away can backfire. Even if you wipe the enemy team quickly with all of your ults, they have plenty of time to come back and use all their ults on your team, wiping you guys and getting control of the point. So if you don't have comeback mechanic, use some ults to win the first point fight, but have some saved for when the enemy comes back for another fight. That way you have some ults to combat theirs with. Now the last part of the game I want to talk about is when the score is 3-3 or 3-2 and you're pushing the payload. So let's say you're close to pushing it in, and if you do, you win the game. Well, there is an important choice to be made here. Do you use ultimates to win right there? It could work out, but if something goes wrong and they still defend, then the score will either remain 3-3 or go up to 3-3, and the enemy will have ultimates for the last round and your team won't. If that happens, you'll likely lose the game. I'm not saying to never use ults to try and win the game while pushing the payload, but you have to be absolutely positive that your ults are going to get the kills needed to win the game right there. Because if they don't and the enemy doesn't use any, you're at a big disadvantage going into the final round. So if you don't think you can push the payload in, even by using ults, don't do it. Save them so you can have a fair fight going into the final round. If you can get the enemy to use their ults attempting to defend, while you're saving yours, that's even better, because then you have the advantage going into the final round. Again, if you're the team on the other side of this that's defending, if you can defend without using your ults while getting them to use theirs, that's big for you. But remember, that's also a big risk. If you don't use any ults when needed to combat theirs, they could break through you and win the game off that final push. So when it comes to using your ultimates over the course of a game, that was a good standard outline on how to do it. Making those choices I mentioned is all on you though. I can't really list out every possible situation to use or not use your ult in. I wish I could, but there are way too many. So making the proper choices is on you. Anyway, that's pretty much it guys. I want to thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I'm going to see you guys later. Bye.